So you're back for day 3 of the Unitask Get Social activity, and today is all about social media advertising across the different channels, but also looking at how you can use it to drive sales and how you can target different types of customers. So if you just bear with me, as usual I have some slides to share. So whilst we're talking about social advertising, it's first beneficial to think about the 2 different types of content that we see on social platforms. The content that we consider to be free marketing is referred to as organic content, and organic content is how we traditionally think of social media. But these days, you can't really approach social media without advertising budget. And that's why we refer to paid content or social media advertising. Just in the same way that we have traditional advertising and editorial, they're a very similar thing here. We have organic content and paid content. This is important because the average reach for organic posts, and I'm using Facebook here as an example, is down to just 5.2% of the audience. That's quite a small amount of your audience, especially if your audience is quite small anyway. And in terms of engaging with a post for organic content, it's not being shown to that many people, and the engagement is down to 0.25%. So although you might say, I've got 2,000 followers on my Facebook page, by the time that's down to the 5% and then down to the 0.25%, you're actually reaching quite a small audience. And the way around this is to put advertising spend behind your posts. Now you can do this on all the channels that we've been talking about this week: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. They all work slightly different, but they work on the principle that we tell the social networks things about us when we set up our account. So we set up a LinkedIn account, we put on our job title, the company we work for. We start a Facebook page, a profile, we talk about the area that we live in, who are we connected to, and all of the networks also can work out what we do and don't interact with. So which sort of pages do you follow? That tells you about your interests. What do you generally engage with? That will tell you the sort of things that can be targeted at you. So I've been onto all of my social accounts and I've pulled off a few social adverts. Now, these are obviously not social adverts that you would use, but I have to show you this based on what's been targeted at me because of what it says about me. Now, I am a little worried because there is a number of alcohol posts that are targeted at me today. You can tell that these are paid for posts because they've got sponsored under the name there. So things that have been targeted at me on just, I guess, on my interests. I've got some alcohol and I've got a meal kit. And that's probably because I bought a number of meal kits over the course of the last few months, and maybe I've ordered some specialist alcohol. So this network, it was Facebook, have learned these things about me by my behaviours. Now here we start to get a little bit more clever. This example on the left, planning a hen party just got a whole lot easier. Well, how did Facebook and how did Heyman's Gin know that I'm due to get married and I'm going to have a hen do? Well, Facebook knows by my status that I'm engaged. It's probably worked out a certain time frame that I've been engaged, so potentially more likely to interact with this. So that's based on information that I've put into my account. Now, these are also on Facebook, and I've picked them out because they are both business-related posts. One is from the Federation of Small Businesses and one is from the Chartered Institute of Marketing. So the CIM one has probably come up from my job role, being around marketing, and I suspect this one is because it says on Facebook that I'm a director or I'm a small business owner. So you can start to see that when you think about what you've then put into Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram, actually there's a whole load of opportunities for marketing. Just so that you could see across the channels, the different types of adverts. So this is from my LinkedIn account. I've got an O2 ad and I've got a WeWork ad. On my Twitter, I've got, See, I'm slightly embarrassed. I've got a Naked Wines advert. And on my Instagram, I've got a whole range. So the first one is a business credit card. Sorry, not business credit card, a business card. One is a beauty product. One is for Fortnum's and Mason. It's food and drink again. It's probably tell how much I interact with food and drink posts on the social networks. So all of these ads are all targeted me based on my behavior. And so when you're thinking about how are you going to reach your audience with some paid spend, think about the sorts of things that we might know about those people. Now, the first thing I want you to do before you go ahead and do any of this is understanding the advertising policies. Things like prohibited content, restricted content. There's a lot around restrictions around any kind of promotion related to anything to do with the pandemic, but there are other restrictions around alcohol, for example, and it is really, really important that you have been through and you've understood this for each of the channels. Links to each of these policies is on today's email, so you can go and get to them quite easily. I also just wanted to highlight Facebook Blueprint. And here you can see that there's quite a lot of advice around marketing on Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, and WhatsApp. And all of this is free and actually really, really quite good. And you can even get certified from Facebook for your skills. So for many of you, there isn't going to be loads of targeting options in terms of knowing, the exact job titles, for example, that you want to reach. So you may have to go on a geographic basis. And so here I've put an example. I want to market this piece of content or this advert to people within a 25-mile radius of York. If I was on Instagram, I might be able to do it to a particular industry type, but equally on Facebook, I could target to head chefs or small business owners. So you've got, it's absolutely worth playing around with the platforms and working out if there is anything from your target that you can reach. But at worst case, I would go for the geographic option. You also have the option to target your posts at people who already like your page. And of course, that is of real benefit, because those people have already said they're interested in what you're doing. You can also target to the friends of people who like your page. The next option you've got, and again, what I'm talking about here, these principles, I'm using Facebook as an example because it has probably the most powerful of the ad platforms and the most options, but the principles of what I'm telling you actually go across the different platforms. I find Facebook is probably the most cost effective. LinkedIn is good in some situations. It can be more costly per interaction or per reach or to behavior, but actually from a B2B point of view, you can achieve a lot with that. Twitter has less targeting options, but in terms of reach and reaching an audience, that it's good. And then Instagram has actually got two options. You're running off the Facebook platform to run your Instagram advertising, or within Instagram itself. So there's slightly different options there. The benefit with Instagram is because Facebook owns Instagram. You've got all that data that you've already told Facebook. So one of the questions I get asked all the time is, how much should I spend on my social advertising? Well, that's very much what you can afford. I have seen very local businesses achieve a lot with £5 spend. I've seen large businesses spending hundreds of pounds per advert or piece of content. So think about how much you want to spend, and then I would always go in with a test budget. So say, look, I'm going to work out what I get when I spend £10 a post. I'm going to work out what I spend if I don't do any paid posts all week, and then once a week I do a £50 spend, and play around with all the different settings. There is no one rule that I can give all of you in terms of, if you do this, this and this magic formula, this will work, because everybody's audiences are different. What you should really think about as well is whether you're trying to generate awareness, generate people interested in your product, or whether you want a decision for them to go on and buy your product. And that means what they're going to be, the way you're going to reach them is very different. So for example, there is no point trying to do an advert at someone who you're doing your advert based on clicks if they're not even aware that you exist. So, and actually, but all the social networks offer different products, different advertising opportunities, depending where in the sales funnel those people are. So don't try to do too much too soon. If people aren't aware of you, then you must do awareness first. And that may mean that the piece of content you're posting out there is much broader. Whereas if you're reaching the consideration phase, then you're probably trying to get people to click through to your website. Whereas if they're at the point of a decision, then maybe at the decision point, they are they're seeing ads because they've already visited your website. So within each of the social networks, they actually help you, especially Facebook. Here we've got awareness. So when you're setting up an ad, you can say, I want to generate brand awareness, I'd want to generate reach. Once you get to that consideration phase, do you want to drive traffic to a website? Do you want to generate engagement with people who have already interacted with you, or you're going for the sorts of people that you're going to engage? Do you want to get video views? Do you want to get people to message you? And then we've got the conversion stage. So actually, I want to target people who are going to convert for me. So both of these ads are things that have appeared in my Facebook feed almost immediately after I've been and visited a website. And that's using something called the Facebook Pixel, which is another area for you to explore, is how can you target your posts at people who have already visited your site, because that says something about how engaged they are with your content. One of the things I find social advertising particularly good for, and this works on all channels, is an A/B test. So basically working out which style of images works best. Does it work best if there's people in the shot? Does it work best if it's a more, I guess, visually appealing image from a rule of thirds of photography perspective? Does the copy style A work better than copy style B? Does it work better when I use this button compared to this button? And all of these are experiments that you can run to work out what's performing for you. And then actually you can use that as a guideline for your organic content as well as your advertised content. As I mentioned before, there is no one rule. What works for one of the members is going to work differently for another member, and it will depend on your geographic region, who your audience is, who you're trying to reach, what your brand awareness already is. And that's why going away and looking at the reporting is absolutely critical to work out whether it's worth continuing spend. I've got a client who said a year ago they were getting really good return for their ad spend, but over the course of the year that's dropped because behaviours changed so much over the year, and now they're having to do a real big rethink about their social advertising. On the reverse, I have other people who didn't really do any social advertising. They've started doing it and then realised they're getting massive engagement. And it's good to also compare different content types. So if you're doing a post or an ad that's using an image, then that may well get different results to if you're doing a post that's based on a video, and that's again important to measure. So the reporting function across all of the social networks is really good, and something that you should really invest the time in understanding. And certainly if you enter the competition for 3 months social support from ourselves, we will help you do this. We'll help you learn what you can achieve with paid spend, so that by the end of the 3 months, you've got a clear strategy for going forward. So we're only on Wednesday, there's more content to come. So if you want to learn more, tomorrow we're looking at protecting your accounts, and we're talking a little bit about new social networks, and then we'll cover what those social networks are telling us about the sorts of content we should be producing. And then on Friday, we've got our fantastic interview with the digital team at Walkers, where you will learn loads from their experience. So don't forget to enter the competition, and I'll see you tomorrow.